the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
We've all been involved in conversations that seemed harmless in the moment, sharing a story, venting maybe a frustration, or passing along something that we actually heard, only to realize later that we may just have crossed a line. Our Catholic faith reminds us that our words have real spiritual weight, capable of building others up or quietly tearing them down. So how do we recognize the difference between normal conversation and gossip, especially when it's subtle? Joining us live from St. Louis, Missouri is Father Michael Rennier, the Vice Rector of the Oratory of Saints Gregory and Augustine in St. Louis, to help us examine our speech through a Catholic lens. Father Rennier is a former Anglican priest and a convert to the Catholic faith. He has a weekly column with Aletheia and a book from Sophia Press called The Forgotten Language: How Recovering the Poetics of the Mass Will Change Our Lives. Good morning, Father Rennier. Thanks so much for joining us here on Morning Air once again. It's really great to be with you here on this Friday morning in Lent.
Yeah, good morning. I'm happy to be here.
Father, before we talk about gossip, and I find this a fascinating topic that you actually recently wrote about on Aletheia. As a Pentecostal, what was your understanding of gossiping?
Oh, of gossiping. Oh, I don't know. I left I converted out of the Pentecostal church around the age of 18. So my guess is I was probably an oblivious 17-year-old happily gossiping and right, and not thinking anything of it. It took me a long time before I realized, I was well into adulthood before I realized that I do have a problem with gossip. Because I had convinced myself that I could talk about other people as long as I was saying true things. And I would say, I would say this if they were here too. That was my way of sort of coping. I would say, I know they're not here and I'm talking about them, but it's all true, I promise. And if they were here, I would still say it, which probably wasn't accurate. But gossip has been something that I think I've indulged in for a long time, and probably most of us do, whether we think about it or not.
And obviously, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to gossip. You, like I said, you wrote about it recently on Aletheia, and you just reminded us that just because something is true doesn't mean that it is good speech.
Exactly, and because it's often an issue of curiosity. I just want to be talking about somebody, and I want to get all the news, and maybe I'll, even if I'm clever and sneaky, I'll start by saying, oh, so-and-so did this, and isn't that so great? And then I kind of want to hear a reaction, and then we go from there. I think there's also a Christian form of gossip that's very subtle, and we have to be careful for it. And it might take the form of, I'll come to you and I'll say, I heard so-and-so is having a really hard time. Will you pray for them? And hopefully, I'm kind of hoping that we'll open up a little vein of gossip there and talk about, oh, well, why are they having such a hard time? And so it's this very sneaky thing that comes up. As a priest over the years, I've learned a couple things. One, people are always asking me for information. So they might ask me, oh, I heard so-and-so was in the hospital, and they want me to confirm it. And it's really not my information to give. Or they might be asking me to share some even good information. And over the years, I've learned to be careful about that too, because that good information might not be mine to sort of steal that person's thunder. Maybe they want to announce their good information later, and I'm kind of stealing their moment, as it were. And the second thing I've learned is that even though priests are very tight-lipped, I think you can feel comfortable with the information you share with us. We don't breathe a word of what we hear in the confessional or in counseling sessions, and we take that very, very seriously. We don't spread around parish gossip, but among ourselves, talking with and about other priests, we're terrible gossips, and we really have a problem talking about each other. And I've realized that just because I'm a priest doesn't mean that these sins go away.
That's why even priests can go to confession.
Oh, every week, yes. And I have plenty to talk about in there.
Father, I know in your article you point out 5 fascinating things that will help us understand whether or not it's gossiping. Can you share with them with us?
Sure. So people often will ask me, and they're very sincere. They want to know if they have committed the sin of gossip, or they want to talk to someone about something that's on their mind, but they're worried if they do that it will become gossip. And I think that's not always the case. So when we're trying to identify gossip, there are some specific things we can think about. So first, is my speech motivated by negativity or jealousy or insecurity? Am I wanting to judge someone else and talk to another person about it and try to get them on my team so that then I can feel better about myself? So if I'm needlessly damaging someone's reputation or talking about them in a way that inflames curiosity unnecessarily, that's probably gossip. Another characteristic of gossip is that it lacks empathy. So when we gossip, we tend to selectively share all of our facts and we'll slant the truth. We're trying to build a narrative to kind of get our point of view across and make ourselves feel better maybe about an interaction or what someone else is doing, that we can feel superior about it. So gossip lacks empathy and it creates division. So anytime I find myself in a conversation and I realize, I created a problem there, that's when I know I need to repent. And then later, another characteristic of gossip is I may not quite understand at the time, but I walk away from that interaction feeling a vague sense of guilt. And guilt is a good thing if it motivates us to think harder about our interactions. Another characteristic is gossip is always about curiosity. It's trying to get details out of people, details maybe we don't deserve or don't need. And then also that last thing I mentioned in the column is what I mentioned a minute ago, which is that gossip can be very sneaky and it can disguise itself in that sort of Christian form of asking for a prayer request or that sort of thing. So this is what we have to watch out for.
And obviously there are some times when we share heartfelt thoughts and it's not actually gossip.
Right. So find a confidant, someone you know will not share the news or spread it around, someone who will react to what you say with empathy, offer you maybe some advice to turn the situation into a positive direction, someone who can encourage you, those sorts of things. Because we do need, when we have problems or personal issues with people, to get good counsel. So my advice would be find one or two people who are very good at offering that counsel and talk to them and only them.
That was the Best of the Week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the Best of the Week is on the Relevant Radio app, free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.